Alright guys, so this video is specific to this closing lathe I have. I have one of the old school English, I think they're fairly common, closing Colchester lathes. I think they're a 13 by 36. This one's in pretty good shape. I bought it from someone I know that took good care of it, and so they have an inherent problem that has nothing really to do with anything other than they just tend to leak in the front, or they tend to leak supposedly all over, but this one particularly is leaking in the front cover for the lead screw, and it's leaking across the bottom, and it also was leaking out both drain plugs. And so I went online thinking, well, somebody else has had this problem, and I only really found one video that was a restoration video, which did show me how to take the cover off, because I was kind of dumbfounded by how to get the. I thought I was gonna have to take the levers off to get the cover off, but all the levers come with the front cover. It's pretty heavy too. So quick little video about how to get this thing apart. I'm going to RTV it back together because I don't want it leaking, and it was leaking pretty badly in the front, enough that it went way below the sight glass pretty quick. So gonna RTV the front cover on. It's gonna make getting it off, if I have to get it off again, a real pain in the butt, but obviously I can't have oil leaking out of it where, you know, it'll wear the gears out. So that's what the purpose of this video is. Once I get that done, so I had a pretty significant problem, and we'll kind of go over that in the video. It has to do with, there's detent springs in two of the levers, and I'm not sure if this was the last person that owned it or if it just is kind of an inherent problem in these machines, but one of the springs got jammed in the bore, and this steps I had to go through to get the spring out was really unbelievable. And so ordered new springs, made sure and ordered a diameter. So really quickly, the bore is 0.2425 and the springs were 0.24, so they were just under the bore. And so when they jammed up, they were just almost impossible to get out because it's a hardened spring and it's now jammed inside the bore. So ordered springs that were a fair bit smaller bore wise, and we'll kind of talk through that when we get there. So on with the show. So I've cheated and already taken this cover off, and that's why you guys could probably see just out of screen the gasket that someone had made, the previous owner had made. And again, the gasket's good quality, but it leaked all across the bottom here because there's only 3 bolts in the bottom. It just doesn't have enough pressure, unless maybe it was a cork gasket, to actually keep this from leaking. So I tightened them up as tight as I could get them. Still leaked anyways, so that was the end of that. So I drained out all the oil using one of these. Just cut a milk jug open and just drained the milk jug in, or drained the oil into the milk jug. So the drain plugs are a 3/4 inch socket, and in my case they're already loose, and we'll go ahead and take them out. There's one here, and there's one over on this side. Mine had fiber washers. They didn't seal. I don't know if they were old fiber washers or if that just doesn't work very well. So when I bought new hardware for doing this, I bought 2 fiber washers. I bought 2 neoprene washers, and where's my copper washers? I bought 2 sealing washers that are copper. And I got these from O'Reilly's, which these are the wrong size. They're M12. They don't fit these particular drain plugs, but they're with very minimal, a tiny amount of dremeling. These will fit. I wish they were a thinner washer. They're kind of thick for a sealing washer. I wish the ID to OD was closer together so I could get more surface pressure on them, but I don't know which one's going to work, so I bought all 3 types. So that's that. Like I said, 3/4 inch socket, and then I'm gonna put those in there for now. You're probably going to need, to get this lever off here, you are going to need a 5/16 Allen wrench for the big Allen head. And let's get this in place here. How come this won't go out? There we go. And then the smaller set screws in the ends, let me check and make sure. Is that them? Oh, these Chinese ones are unmarked. The small set screws on the end are supposedly an 1/8 inch. So 1/8 inch for the set screws on the end. We'll go ahead and take the set screws out. So set screws come out. And like I said, I've already had this apart. So set screws come out. And then the 5/16 is going to come out. And drop that down. And then I used a wedge just in case this is slit on the backside, but it ended up that I could actually just tap it with a brass hammer and it popped right off. So get that out of the road. You may or may not need a chisel type thing where, you know, something to wedge it open. We'll go ahead and put the gasket somewhere. I just got a water bottle and got all the water out of it with a rag or a paper towel inside, and I drained all my fluid in there. There wasn't much left. I'll go ahead and just toss this back there. Let's see. So next you can take all these bolts out on the front cover here, and these are going to be, I believe, 1/4. Yeah, these are 1/4 inch, and there's 6 of them, and mine were pretty tight. On my particular machine, these here I thought were to take these levers off. They're not. They control the amount of pressure on a ball detent for these to go into position. Part of what happened, part of this whole fiasco, is one of these set screws. You guys probably can't see it. Let me see if I can get it to show up better. One of these set screws, if you look at the end, basically the set screw itself, in my opinion, these set screws should have had, so set screws are going to be a 5/32 if your machine has them. The set screws should have been completely flat, meaning someone should have ground them down so they were totally flat. By being conical, as you tighten them up, it wants to open up this spring. And if you put the spring in the wrong direction, this one's wound the wrong direction. As you're tightening it, it's trying to open that spring up. So these should be dead flat. The springs probably wouldn't have opened up then. And then the spring itself, in my case, I don't believe was long enough. So this caused me to have to do all kinds of stuff. I had to mount this in the vise, and I had to get spring steel And I had to, let me see how tight that is. Oh yeah, that's not, no detent at all. See, even that one's trying to do it. So that sucks, because if that gets jammed, that was a huge amount of work. So what I ended up having to do, I ended up having to make a hook out of hardened steel small enough to get inside and hook this spring, and I had to do it a couple times to get the spring out. It was a really big deal because the spring gets caught on these 1/4 20 threads, and it just was a disaster. It was kind of a crappy design. So I ordered springs that are much smaller, so they shouldn't do that, and I'm going to flatten these. But anyways, so we're going to simulate taking all these bolts out. This is the last of all the bolts. And when you take this out, doesn't really matter what position these are in, they're kind of a pain in the butt to get back together. You should have retaining dowels here and here that are going to keep this lined up, but this whole thing pulls off relatively easily. So this whole cover comes off. Why are you not coming off? There we go. Trying to operate the GoPro with greasy hands. So the way these work is, these pins have already been pushed out. These selector levers here, when you select these copper pucks, move gears around. All three of these. This looks like maybe it's brass, but these two are copper. So the way they work is this puck over here slides this upper selector gear to the appropriate spot. So you got it either engages here or it disengages. So it's either able to the lead screw is able to spin freely. Let's make sure you guys can see that. So that's spinning freely, or it's slid over and engages this gear. Then this selector shaft, it rotates to the different gear positions, and everything's super sharp. And there's this comb down here that indexes where this lines up to give you your different gear selectors. And then on this side, let's see, there's CD, which is this one, and AB, which is this one. And those levers move this gear and then one up here. So getting those lined back up, if you have to get those, when you have to get those lined back up, there's a whole bunch of trial and error and trying to get them, put back into place. So I bought these lever arms have these pins, and they're not really dowel pins or spring pins, so I'm replacing them with actual spring pins. I don't know that that's necessary. And then these arms, you can get the arms out, and they have a ball that goes into these have two little pockets that these balls detent into. And it's just not a super wonderful design, so I've got to wait for springs to come in. And but like I said, I'm trying to service this. The whole point of this is this thing was leaking across the bottom here and here. Obviously there's enough pressure at the bolt holes that it doesn't leak, but the issue here is I want it to, I think the oil level is somewhere about here. None of this should leak. I don't want any of this leaking. It's very important that it doesn't. So we're going to go ahead and get this cleaned up and get a gasket RTV'd on there and get this thing reassembled. All right, again, I'm not faulting the prior owner. But when he painted this, obviously all this paint has come off because the clearance is too tight. And then these ball detents, you don't really want paint in those. It just turns into a slurry. So I dug all the paint out of those baldy tents. It just, the balls don't seat as well. And then on these, what I would do is tap out, just chase those threads. That's what I'm doing. There was a lot of gunk in one of them. And then the way these are in position, you basically can't get them messed up. So if I put this way, the detent, there's nothing over here. So obviously this lever goes over here and the detent lines up with these two. And then this lever goes over here and the detent lines up with those two. So I got to clean these threads out and then we're just about ready for reassembly. Also, I bought new balls because those ones were dingy and I pounded on one so hard I can't believe I didn't flat spot it. So I'm assuming I did flat spot it. So new balls I got at the local hardware store, and I'm just waiting for springs to come in from, ended up being MSC Direct. It was the cheapest for the springs I wanted. Their minimum order was none, and I think they charged $8 for shipping. Was going to order from a specialized spring company, and they had a minimum order. One had 40 and one had $30. Well, I would do that if I was getting a sorted spring kit, but I need 2 springs. So I think I ordered 4 from MSC at 2 different ratings, and like I said, it was $8 shipping, and they're going to be here in a day or 2. So that's what I did. All right, first thing we're going to do is put these selector levers back in, and we're going to put the back components on. Put these up. I may stake these little paddles. They are very floppy for reassembly. So this is labeled B. I don't know if yours will be, but that's labeled B. It goes with this arm here, and it points down. And then I have yet to see how well these new spring clips are going to fit. They may not work. We'll see. How tight are they getting? Let's get them up where I can get to them. Not fitting very well, not the way they should. Am I doing something wrong here? Wow. Why is that so flipping tight? Should should not be that tight. What is going on here? That's tight. Why did that spring clip make that so tight? All right, because I don't have the springs yet, I tightened the set screws down against the balls so these move a little tiny bit. And that isn't, this one's tight. That's in an effort to get these pucks to line up. These pucks to line up. I think I'm going to bevel the edge of the puck just barely. The reason for that is I'm hoping it'll start, and I may actually stake the shaft. They rotate very freely, so if you bump them when installing them, they turn. So I may stake these, I'm not sure, but I'm just going to put the tiniest bevel on these edges to get it hopefully to go in. Alright guys, I got the springs in, and they are 0.180 diameter. The springs I bought were the highest spring rate that MSC offered in that 0.18 diameter size OD. I would have preferred a 3/4 inch long spring, but they only had 1/2 inch. The detent action is acceptable. It's not wonderful. I would have preferred a stiffer spring or a longer, stiffer spring. It'll work. Also, the one lever on the right-hand side that was real stiff, I ended up having to sand down the back of the lever carefully. I have a flat plate that I stuck some sandpaper to, and then, you know, just sanded it in 2 different directions to keep it square. But it was just too tight on the where they bored the hole was too tight with those spring pins, and so it's still tight. It may come off. Well, no, because it's RTV'd on there, so it's definitely not coming off. But if it were easier to get off, or what I should have done is just taken care of it a little better at the time, but it'll work. So the detent's okay. It's not wonderful. Alright guys, here's the gasket material I used. It's just a cork material from O'Reilly's. And what I did is I cut it into strips like that. And I glued the strips along the bottom here, and then up each section of the 3 sections. And I glued it, or glued, RTV'd, yeah. And then where there was joints, which there was a joint down at the bottom there, and a joint in each vertical, I just put some RTV between the joints so that it would just act as a bridge. Let it set up overnight so that I wasn't crushing the gasket and squeezing the RTV out. And then I doped the metal face that it was going to seal against in the morning. And I partially tightened it and let it set up, and then tightened it the rest of the way. Alright guys, this thing's cured overnight, this front cover. So I didn't show putting it on. There's lots and lots of finagling, meaning a bunch of time just taking it on and off, trying to get the little pucks to line up. So there's no real science in that, and no reason to show. It was super frustrating. Finally got it to line up correctly. Hopefully it actually shifts correctly. I still have to test that, but got the arm on. So just tap this on, put the 2 set screws in the end there, and then tighten that down. We're good to go on that. So this has been sitting overnight. I ground these washers. I ground them down so they'd fit. They're a metric washer that I had in stock, so we're going to see if those will work. Metric brass washer. Going to put those in under there and see if this thing will fill up with oil. Okay, I've got brand new fresh used oil in this container, and there's my fill spout. All right, that's all the oil that I've got. That should show on the sight glass and give me an idea of whether it's leaking immediately or not. All right, so after filling it, you can see that I actually overfilled it. Managed to overfill it. And it leaks oil still. So it's not leaking it out the sides or the bottom. It's actually leaking out of one of the bushings back here because I overfilled it so much. All right, so managed to get the cover back on and fill it. I managed to overfill it, but it works fine other than it leaks. It's not leaking a lot. I don't know. I mean, it looks like a lot, but it's not a huge amount. I believe it's leaking out one of the end shafts in between the shaft and the bushing. It's not a huge deal. Now, if it gets down to the full mark and continues to leak, then I will probably have to open it back up and see what's going on or try to adjust the leak. But for now, it's good. I can use it, and that's what I've been looking forward to doing. I actually have already made a little washer for my mower. I adapted one blade because we had a size here that didn't fit any mower, so I ended up adapting it by using a shouldered washer. So I'm super glad to have it. We're going to move on to the mill and getting that set up. Probably the next video you'll see is me routing the power through the switch over there for the lathe, and possibly routing the power on the other side of the switch for the mill. Secretly, I have the mill already torn apart. I'll go over that in the next video. I just kind of had to figure out whether it was feasible to do what I wanted to do and whether there was even going to be a video series on that or not. And it's ended up, I think it's going to be pretty easy. So anyways, as always, I hope this helps somebody. If any of you out there have one of these, I believe they're a good lathe. And I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great day.